Kick it off and I'll start navigating to Facebook Live.
I would be glad to.
Okay, let's cross our fingers it works.
Okay, wait just a second, or?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay. Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Matt and Carol, we'll get to you in a minute. Thanks for joining us, our speakers. So I'm Dan Bates, President and CEO, Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce. Those of you who have been with us before know that you can ask questions of the speakers if you are on Zoom. If you're on Facebook Live, type in your questions and Tiffany will repeat them to the speakers. So we're going to get started here in just a second. You know who I am. We're going to find out who all of you are. And in just a minute, then we're excited to hear from Carol Lucio and Matt Loeffler, who are going to be our presenters today. So I think I turn it over to Laura for introductions.
Yep, so welcome. We're glad to have everybody here today. I'm Laura Merrill with the Greater Hamilton Chamber. So I will just go around my screen. Tell me your name and what company you're with. Mike, we'll start with you. Well, Mike Gettert. We got two mics today, so.
I'm Mike Gettert. I'm with Brown Dawson Flick Funeral Home.
Awesome. Nancy.
I'm Nancy O'Neill with the Greater Hamilton Chamber.
Vicki.
I'm Vicki Garnett, and I'm manager at the Hamilton Welcome Center.
Tammy.
Tammy Walton, the Greater Hamilton Chamber.
And Mike Moore.
Mike Moore, Habitat for Humanity Restores.
And who's inside today?
Hi, I'm Ann Arnett with Gateway Springs Health Campus.
And Jill.
Hi, I'm Jill Cates. I'm with Easter Seals Career Connection.
Wonderful. Glad to have you all here today. Tiffany.
I am Tiffany with the Greater Hamilton Chamber.
All right, and then Carol and Matt, would you like to give a little introduction?
I'm Carol Lucio with Butler County Safe Communities, where our mission is to reduce traffic crashes, injuries, and fatalities on Butler County roadways.
I'm Matt Loeffler. I'm the traffic engineer for the Butler County Engineer's Office.
Wonderful. We're glad to have both of you here today. So we're excited to hear about your topic, and we'll let you two kick it off.
Okay. So I am going to share our screen. Okay. Can you all see that slide there?
Yes.
All right, so we're going to talk about traffic safety citizenship and how it really is up to everyone in the community to make our roads safer and join us on the mission to reduce traffic injuries, crashes, injuries, and fatalities in Butler County. So the questions I'd like you to keep in mind as we go through this morning is, why is this important to me? Why is this important to me as an individual? Why is this important to me or us as a business or an organization? So when looking at traffic safety, there are really four key components around traffic safety, the 4 E's of traffic safety: engineering, education, enforcement, and emergency services. Obviously, emergency services is very self-explanatory. That will not be something that we discuss this morning, but we will touch on enforcement and then go more into engineering and education, which is why Matt and I are here. So I want to do a little bit of a background. I mean, we all know that when you're in a crash, you pay for your crashes, right? So you're paying with insurance premiums, fines, fees, time off of work or school, rehab, all that kind of stuff. You pay for your crashes. But really, if you think about it, we all pay for every crash. You could be the safest driver ever, and yet your tax dollars are going to help cover those unsafe drivers on the road, because the general public pays nearly 3/4 of all crash costs, primarily through increased insurance premiums and taxes and lost productivity. So in Ohio, the average cost for a fatal crash is about 1.7 million, just under 100,000 if it's a disabling crash. So if you apply that, 3/4 of that is bore by the taxpayers, that's actually a lot of money. And I want to go specifically into how that relates in Butler County. So in Butler County in 2018, we had almost 8,800 crashes. Of those, over 2,300 were injury crashes only. Almost 200 were incapacitating injuries, and 28 of those were fatal, resulting in 30 people who lost their lives on Butler County roadways in that 1 year. In 2019, we did a little bit better. We only had 8,300 crashes. You can see how those stats break down. But if you were to add together just 2018 and 19, we had 51 fatalities. And of those 51 fatalities, 18 were youth, meaning under the age of 25. Youth is anybody from any driver under the age of 25. So that was 35%. So you're going to see a lot of our efforts are focused on our youth population and educating them and equipping them to be better drivers. But the other thing I want to point out is that we had 11 motorcycle fatalities in the last 2 years. That's 22% of all of our fatalities, and yet they're not on the road all 12 months of the year. So that's a super high number, and we need to be very focused on that. The other thing I do want to focus on is that last year, almost 90% of our fatalities were males. So that's a population that we really need to be talking to about safety and why we're engaging folks in these discussions. So I want to look at one other thing. We do a lot of data analysis and looking at what are the causes of fatalities, what things could be done to make things safer. We look at all crashes. So there's a great resource out there if you're a data geek like myself and you want more information, or you can access this yourself at any time. You can go on the Ohio State Highway Patrol site. This is the crash statistics site, and you can gather this. But this is just 2019, and you can see there's some data at the top. You can look at specific data, and at the bottom where it breaks it down by severity of the crash. But I want to look at that right-hand column where it shows the hours of crashes and the days of crashes. You can see that there are certain spots where it's much darker red. So I'm going to actually pinpoint that a little bit more. If you look at that first yellow circle spot, that's your 7 to 8 a.m. hour. And then we look at that big chunk in the afternoon from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. Those segments have the highest number of crashes. And that's Monday through Friday. So what's going on during that time? It's rush hour. So this is a reason why we are very focused on talking to companies about helping us with a traffic safety message, because we want to make sure that their employees are getting to and from work safely. But also we want to make sure that all people are safe on our roads. So our goal really is to move towards 0 deaths. Lofty goal, difficult to accomplish, absolutely, but worth striving for without question. So I talked about the wheel here, the 4 E's of traffic safety. I'm gonna now tag team to Matt Loeffler with the Butler County Engineers Office that's going to look at that first E in traffic safety citizenship, which is engineering. Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. So yeah, as Carol just touched on, you know, at the engineer's office, certainly our #1 goal is safety to our traveling public. So our job at the engineer's office is to engineer and maintain safe and efficient roadways. One of our most, I guess, greatest tool in our toolbox over the last, well, since 2008 when the first one went in is our roundabouts. The single lane roundabout has been probably the single most crash and certainly injury, fatal reduction tool in our toolbox. We now have 19 roundabouts in Butler County, and you can see the before and after is very clear. There's 72% overall crash reduction, 83% reduction in injury crashes, and 100% fatal reductions. We have not had a fatal at any of our 19 roundabouts. And just take this into perspective. If you know, Carol brought up the numbers of 2018 and 2019. The injury crashes in those 2 years, now that's all of Butler County, was 4,400 injury crashes. So that reduction is over 3,500 crashes now. All those injury crashes certainly not at intersections. That is the #1 place that, run off the road type crashes. But at the intersections and at the busy times, that's when cars can come together, unfortunately. And what roundabouts do to keep it safe is slow and calm traffic. So it's a physical barrier in a way that forces cars to go slower. It reduces conflict points down to 8 conflict points. So a normal intersection has over 32 conflict points. And pedestrian bikes, it's safer for both of them as well. Bikes because the traveling speed in a roundabout is 15 miles per hour, maybe 20 in some of our roundabouts. But both those speeds are closer to what a bike can travel at, so they're moving at the same speeds. And then pedestrians, it's also safe for the single lane roundabout because your exposure to traffic is less. You're only crossing maybe 15 feet to get to a splitter island, and you're only crossing one-way traffic, one leg at a time, and you're crossing behind, upon the entry of a roundabout, you're crossing behind 1 car length. So, the car, as we all drive, we pretty much usually concentrate on other vehicles in our way. And that's why we lose the sight of motorcycles, pedestrians, bikes sometimes, because our focus, unfortunately, is more on the bigger things, which are the vehicles. So when you come up to the yield line as a car, you first need to yield to the pedestrian, the crosswalk. But once you clear that, your focus is then what's in the roundabout and the circular roadway. And a pedestrian is crossing behind the 1 car length, which is key. So next slide, Carol. So this is a roundabout, just since we're talking about Hamilton, this is going to be going in, here's in, switched around on me. Okay, this will be going in next year. The Hamilton Mason, 5 Points, Towlersville, Grand Hancock. That's just an overview of the roundabout. It is pushed up. We did take a lot of property here to get this in. We had several designs from more oblong to peanut shape and we just set it on the more traditional circular. We didn't want to take properties, but we actually had some willing participants as well. And the good thing about this design is that a lot of it is offline. So it's going to be a lot less delay and inconvenience to traveling public because a lot of it will be built off of the existing roadway. So the existing roadway can stay open longer before we have to close down to finish the roundabout. So this will be a huge improvement. It will be our first 5-legged roundabout. And it will, I have no doubts that it will continue to be a safer intersection. And certainly at this location, it'll also be a lot more efficient. So next slide. Then we have, this is the State Route 129 extension, Liberty Way. I'm sure I wanted to bring this up because I'm sure a lot will travel the regional highway, the Veterans Highway, which is 129. So with this project coming up, which will start next year, it'll be a 2-year construction, 21, 22. We are removing the ramps to 129 from Liberty Way. So the Liberty Way interchange will strictly be just the 75. You'll be able to go north and south on 75, but you will not be able to access 129 anymore from Liberty Way. We're going to take 129 and extend it down to Cox Road. where there'll be a roundabout, which will start out as a single lane roundabout. Well, kind of a hybrid. It'll have 2 lanes, 2 right turn eastbound rights, but everything else will really be single until we can extend it what we'll call Veterans Boulevard. So the Veterans Highway, until we can extend Veterans Boulevard through that field on the east side and reconnect to where Tri-Health is, that little stub street, which is Veterans Boulevard, and reconnect to Liberty Way. What this does for us in the future is allows Liberty Way interchange to remain at a good level of service, as well as once the Veterans Boulevard, the future there on the right, connects to Liberty Way, it's going to allow us to still have capacity at the Liberty Way and Cox intersection. So if you're going to access 129, you're going to be utilizing Cox Road to access it instead of the Liberty Way interchange. This is going to be a lot more efficient. It also goes into our long-term plan as possibly eventually Cox Road extending up north to Bethany Road and maybe all the way up to Milliken Road. But what it does too is if anyone's been out in the Cox Road area, VOA, and you want to get back to the interstate or 129, and you go northbound on Cox to take that left is always backed up outside of its storage area. This now takes over 60% of those lefts and makes them a straight through movement to get to that roundabout there, which will access 129. So that's going to be a huge improvement for us starting next year. It started out to be really a safety improvement because ODOT was really concerned with the eastbound. And I know you can't see my cursor, but I don't know if, I don't think you can see this. Carol, can you put the cursor over the ramp there around the Liberty Center Mall, the 129 eastbound ramp? But that was a major concern because that would spill out and was causing a problem when it would queue up, and there could potential for some high-speed rear ends. So removing that, the eastbound ramp from 129 to Liberty Way was a recommendation from ODOT and a safety improvement. Next slide. So lastly, I wanted to cover is just the DDI that just went in at Union Center Boulevard and I-75. Some people might be wondering why we went with this interchange design. Here, probably first and foremost, was probably really for capacity for operations to get better capacity at the interchange moving forward as we look 20 years out. But it also is a safety improvement. The main reason it's safety is it does slow speeds down through that interchange when you're on Union Center Boulevard. It also reduces conflict points, same concept as a roundabout, where we are eliminating the left turns in front of oncoming vehicles. So there's no left turns here where you have to judge a gap from oncoming vehicles. When you travel, and there'll be a slide here soon that I can go over how it's operating, but I don't know if I've got, this one's probably the better one. So when you come over, you're crossing over at the southbound ramp. At each ramp, you're crossing over when you're on Union Center Boulevard, and then you're going over to the wrong way, per se, and you're now, your left turn to get onto the interstate is a free flow left, just like when you go, when you're coming towards the ramps, you take a free flow right to get on the interstate. So everything is unopposed to get on the interstate, and then getting off the interstate. What we've also done to create why this is so much more efficient is it's now a two-phase signal. We don't have left turns to dedicate time to. So we don't have that green time for left turns, and we don't have the yellow and all red phase for those left turns that we can now dedicate back to either the ramps or the Union Center Boulevard. So it's much more efficient, and it also is safer. The next slide. So that's just an overall view. Channel 9, Sky 9 took that for us. We also have some good drone photos of it as well. This was just before it was totally finished because we don't have all the asphalt, the overlay, the final surface course was not on yet, but it has been performing really well. We did have to do some tweaking of some signal timing, but it has been very efficient.
And it now has the tattoos on it, correct?
It does. It has the tattoos, and it has all the signs are now installed on UCB. They are working this week and weekend installing all the big truss signs on the interstate that will help as well with the directional signage for the exit ramps, and also the DMS sign, the sign that will alert. That's the dynamic sign that alerts how much time it takes to get downtown Cincinnati, and if there's a crash up ahead at 75 South, that sign goes up this weekend as well. And just real quick, future projects right now, just Liberty Way and Butler Warren is going on right now. That's out in the border of Mason and Westchester, Liberty Township. And as you see, we have quite a few roundabouts. I did misspeak there before. 5 Points is going in 2022. When I said it was next year, I started guessing myself. It is 2022. The Butler Warren Barrett Western Row out in Westchester is 2021. That'll be a realignment, or that's Mason's got the lead on that. And then the Butler Warren Westchester Socialville Foster next year. That's going to be a realignment of Westchester Road with Socialville Foster. Milliken La Swords of Westchester will be another one in 21. And we have Wayne Madison and Trenton Road, which will have some railroad coordination with that one as well in 21. And we got ongoing right now that ODOT is doing, which will finish up next year in 21, will be the 73 in Jacksonburg Road. So we've continued to put the roundabouts out because we continue to see very high success with those.
73 in Jacksonburg is one of the worst intersections in the state. So super important intersection. Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome.
So we're going to keep moving here on our 4 E's, and we're going to touch real quickly on enforcement. And even though I am clearly not law enforcement, there are some things that I want to share in regard to that. So the CDC has some information out there that is available to the public that shows strategies by state that are taken toward safety. So in the state of Ohio, we do have some things that are geared toward safety, like sobriety checkpoints. We have a fantastic OVI task force in Butler County that are really focused on reducing impaired driving and bringing awareness to that. We have automated speed cameras and red light cameras, in-person license renewal. But there are some things that Ohio could be doing that could make our roads a whole lot safer. So if you have any influence with lawmakers or those who are decision makers, if anybody has paid attention to way back in January, we may have forgotten about, there was a big push by the governor on a proposed law making distracted driving a primary offense, meaning that law enforcement could pull you over just for that. Right now it is a secondary offense. You cannot be pulled over just for that. But also a primary enforcement of seatbelt laws. So currently in the state of Ohio, not wearing your seatbelt is a secondary offense, meaning you cannot be pulled over just for that. But if you run a red light, they can pull you over for that and cite you for not using your seatbelt, which, to be perfectly honest, we have plenty of people in Butler County running red lights. So that is a distinct possibility. You could get cited for both on that. But there are a number of prevention, crash prevention strategies that could be implemented that we're not currently utilizing that we would love to see happen. Why is that important to you? I keep coming back to that why. I want to point back to the cost, right? The costs are big. In the United States, motor vehicle crashes cost about $445 billion, which is, and that was in 2018, which is equivalent to about $2,000 in expense for every licensed driver in the US. This information comes from the National Security Council. So it is in everyone's best interest to be focused on traffic safety for everyone. All right, so we're now going to go to the education part, and you'll see here that I have covered the education wheel with our Butler County Safe Communities logo. So really, my goal when you think of education or awareness in regard to traffic safety is for you to think of Butler County Safe Communities. So here are some things that we've been doing, some highlights from our year last year. We were one of only 20 grant awardees in the nation on a project called Project Ignition with high school students. We're currently partnered with Butler Tech on that and their law enforcement program. Criminal justice. I apologize, I misspoke. It's the criminal justice program. We've got some great partners like iFly with a focus on get high on life instead of getting high on other things or getting drunk on other things, get high on life. And then we are continuing to work with all kinds of other organizations. We've increased our traditional and social media presence. So if you haven't yet liked our Facebook page, Butler County Safe Communities, sure would love you to do that and follow some of the things that we post out there. We've had some great partnerships, particularly with WCPO Channel 9, really focused on traffic safety education and awareness. We brought some new resources. Our fiduciary agent for our grant, Butler County Safe Communities, is the Safety Council of Southwestern Ohio. And we have a newsletter called the Safety Scoop. And in there are all kinds of things on occupational safety as well as traffic safety. But we brought a wonderful program. I mentioned when I was going over the basis for some of the things we do at the beginning, that our youth, our underage 25-year-olds, are a big part of our focus. So one of the things that we've done is we've brought forth the Tire Rack Street Survival School, which is a beyond driver's ed. This is for licensed drivers to get that greater in-car experience. So it's a one-on-one coaching held at the Butler Tech Public Safety Education Complex, PSEC. Butler Tech has graciously donated the use of that space to be used by the Tire Rack folks to give 16 to 21-year-old drivers that chance to learn about their ABS braking system and how to handle the shifting of their car's weight when they're on a gravelly surface, going in and out of cones, all kinds of obstacle course type things, as well as in classroom education. So it's been a really great program. Unfortunately, at the moment, of course, it's on hold. We hope to be back at it next spring and next fall with new classes. We do presentations also with the Citizens Police Academy groups in a number of our police agencies. And we're always looking for new opportunities to get in front of people and talk traffic safety. But the thing I really want to point out this morning is that one of our big initiatives this year and for next year, and obviously this year has been a little strange and difficult to make this happen, is starting a corporate traffic safety program for companies in Butler County. We have some great resources from NHTSA, who is our originating funding agency, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, but they partnered with NETS, which is the Network of Employers for Traffic Safety, to provide a wonderful resource and tool with guidelines for employers to help reduce motor vehicle crashes. And I want to point out that this is not strictly for those companies that have fleet. That's not it at all. The focus is on overall, all employees, traffic safety, education, and awareness. So we would love to talk to companies that have any employees that drive to their business or for their business to talk about the importance of buckling up and putting your phones down, just driving when on the road. So I'm hoping that we have answered these couple of questions. Why is this important to me as an individual, as a business or organization? So hopefully I've given you some reasons why this is important. And again, can encourage you to like us on Facebook. I open it up for anyone where traffic safety is a passion of yours. You're welcome to join our quarterly meetings. We have one coming up next week where we review our fatal crashes in Butler County as well as our efforts. Link us to events, invite us to present, spread the word. We're always looking for more people who are interested in traffic safety education and awareness. So I do want to, I'm gonna go over here and then I'm gonna share this Just Drive very quick video with you all before we close out. But I wanna leave you with 3 things. One is just drive, and I hope that video reinforces that for us before we go this morning. Number 2, set your car rules and enforce them. And I don't care who gets in a car with you, your car should not be put in drive until everyone is buckled up. Even if the person in the back seat is twice your age, don't move your car until everyone has buckled up. Speak up and share. It's so important. There are all kinds of things that we do when we're talking to senior groups. We talk about the need for hands to be at 9 and 3, not at 10 and 2. 9 and 3 is proper positioning now on a steering wheel. 10 and 2 opens you up to an airbag, hitting and having injury to your face, to broken wrists and forearms. So we talk to seniors about that. Our youth, we talk about other things, especially distractions. But it does require a collective effort by everyone in order for our entire county to be safe. So I'm going to go ahead, open up for questions before I do that little video as kind of our wrap up, our leave. So questions. Ooh, crickets.
I have a question for Matt.
Yes.
On the roundabouts, you've done 19, you said now?
Correct.
So I would assume that you've learned some things because they are different, as far as size and, stuff like that. And I was kind of wondering how some of those dimensions and stuff are determined. And then I have a little bit of a complaint. Being a motorcycle rider, there are a couple of the roundabouts that are banked the wrong way. So if the high part is on your left, so you come into the roundabout and you're already leaning, and if it's wet, it's very slippery because you're already leaning far to the left. The road is also going uphill to the left, and even at 15 miles an hour, it can be very slippery. So I'm just kind of putting that out there for the future.
Okay. Yeah, we our roundabout, our standard is 150-foot diameter, but we have slowly reduced that. Realizing and learning that we can get down to about 130. 150 seems to be the most ideal for our exiting and entry angles. But, it somewhat depends on what kind of property, what structures, houses. The thing with the roundabout is it takes up the most right of way at the corners. That's where you need the most right of way, but the project limits are far reduced. So when we first came into this, it was always, do we put a traffic signal in or do we put a roundabout? And with a traffic signal at most of these intersections, we put roundabouts, we would have to put left turn lanes in, which then we would be going out 500 to 800 feet in all directions to put a left turn lane in. We were going to impact a lot more parcels, a lot more right of way than just putting the roundabout at the corner. So to answer your first question, we have as small as 110-foot diameter at Lakota Drive West and Eagle Ridge to our typical 150-foot, which is at most of them, although here the ones here lately have been more 140 or 130. It all depends on just what's we can fit at that intersection. Didn't realize that with motorcycles, it was slick form. That's a standard nationwide to slope it that way because of drainage. You're sloping it away from the center to get into your drainage on the outside. It's the standard cross slope that's on any roadway, which is around 2%. It's 1.6 to 2%. But that certainly can take into account, understand that sometimes those cross slopes are a little more depending on how the pavement's got to be warped to get drainage to work out. But yeah, I'm sure it can be anywhere where there's gravel, and I'm sure at this time right now, once we get a little bit of rain, it becomes really slick. All roadways become really slick because there's so much oil and other things that have accumulated on the roadway and haven't been able to be washed off. So anytime we get a rain here coming up, be careful because the roads will be slick. But yeah, that is the first time I've heard that about motorcycles in the bank.
And I think we might want to look at some signage or something for those, because you can't go 15 around those on a motorcycle if there's any pebbles or it's a wet road or whatever. And so it's kind of scary on some of them. Some of them are very smooth and easy, and some are pretty tight and very sloped. So if you're riding a big bike, they don't corner that well. So maybe some signage, because there's a lot of motorcyclists, in Butler County, to warn people, because people from out of town could get into that circle, that roundabout, before they realize how tight it's really going to be.
Okay.
Dan, I didn't realize you could only go 15 miles per hour.
Sometimes, yes. When I'm pulling out of my garage.
Sorry. I will say that my goal is to take away business from the funeral home. So apologize to you out there, but I want you to have less business, not more.
We will give that business up gladly.
Other questions you all have on traffic safety?
I missed just a couple minutes because I had to take a phone call, but do you have statistics on the number of fatalities that happened without seatbelts? Of the fatalities that were there, how many of them were without seatbelts? I saw the high number of males, and I know more times than not, when I see somebody not wearing a seatbelt, it's a male. And I don't know what it is about that.
Well, everyone has the right to choose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, our numbers in Butler County are that about 84% of people use their seatbelts. So that's based off of observational data and actually using clickers and counting. But the numbers show that about 65% of those in fatal crashes are not wearing their seatbelts. So the number skyrockets for those in fatal crashes. And what people don't realize is that they become a projectile in a crash. And crashes as slow as 25 miles per hour could result in an injury that results in fatality. It doesn't have to be a high-speed crash. Although we are seeing more and more high-speed crashes currently, with less people on the roadways, more people are feeling comfortable to go at higher rates of speed. So you would think here in 2020, our crash numbers would be down, but we're actually trending about 30 more fatal crashes this year over last year in the state of Ohio. And that's even with having very few in the month of April. That's a great question, Mike. Thank you. Yeah, seatbelts are so important. We can't emphasize them enough.
Mm-hmm.
For our senior drivers, we see a lot of, if they're not using their seatbelts because it's not something they were required to do or trained on or raised on, we hear about a lot of hip and pelvis injuries from them sliding underneath the console in a crash. So important for our seniors to make sure that they're proper fit in their cars. And there are great resources from places like AAA that do the Car Fit program to make sure that seniors are properly seated in their cars, their mirrors are facing in the right directions, their seatbelts are in the right spot. We want to make sure their seatbelts are not coming across their neck, because there's a super important artery there that we don't want them slicing. So we want to make sure their seatbelt is coming down over their shoulder and not over their necks. So little things like that that we talk to people about to try to make sure they are being as safe as possible on our roadways.
One other educational item that I think would be very beneficial is really pushing education on keeping your feet off the dashboard on the passenger side. These people that recline, I ran fire department and squad for years. We saw videos of the injuries that can occur when those airbags explode with people having their feet on the dashboard. And it's horrendous injuries. I mean, you know, double hip, you know, dislocation, fractured femurs, which person can bleed out quickly from something like that. And yet you see it every day, people going down the road with their feet up on the dashboard.
That is an area of focus that we really focus on with our young people, especially. Yeah. You know, I don't know if us older folks could actually get our feet up on the dashboard, but
no.
The youth, that is something we talk to them about. But we need to be talking to more of them. And it never hurts to remind them over and over again, because they so quickly forget. But that's a great point, Mike. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, it's so very dangerous.
I have a question, Carol. When there's an accident, a crash, sorry, are their cell phone records checked to see if they were on the cell phone?
It depends on the crash.
Okay. The reason I asked that is I was in an accident in New York years ago, and that's the first thing they did was check to see, you know, if I was on my cell phone, which I was not. And that was back years ago when it was actually a bag phone mounted to the dashboard. But the reason I asked that question is because it's shocking the number of people who, you know, it's one thing to be on your phone and have it, you know, lying on the seat or something like that and you're talking. But I see every day lots of people with the phone up in their face like this driving. You know, I live on Main Street, and most of the accidents and rear end crashes and everything that have happened on Main Street, we saw it because we saw the person go by with their cell phone in their face and just didn't stop for the car in front of them. So are there, you know, I know that you talked about the increasing that as a higher, you know, but what, are there any other things? I mean, it's pretty easy to see. Right. I would say 8 out of 10 people are driving down the road with their cell phone in their face.
Yeah, the numbers are startling. And, you know, there are key components. We talked about that, the education, the engineering, the emergency services, and enforcement. So part of the challenge is it must be enforced. So if our local jurisdictions are not pulling people over when they run a red light and citing them for use of their phone, then people are going to continue to do it because they don't feel like it's a risk of getting caught and they're not going to pay the fines. So there are those key components that must work together. We must have better legislation on it and make it a primary offense, but it also needs to be high enough fines that it hits people where it hurts the most in their pocketbook, and then it has to be enforced. So that's part of our challenge too. I mean, they've got a lot going on already, but part of the challenge is in some jurisdictions, they're just not really focused on that. In others, they are.
So I have 2 more questions. So the other one is it a primary offense for CDL to be on their phone when they're driving? Because that's the scary thing I see more and more is dump trucks and tractor trailers with the, because I know it's against the law, but I don't know what that means. And, you know, they have a rig with, you know, tons and tons behind them, and they're on their cell phones as well. So that's kind of frightening. That's one question. The second question is, would it be a different path to make sure that all cars have, like, you know, some kind of Bluetooth that the phone automatically connects so that everybody can be hands-free. Because I honestly don't think you're going to get people's cell phones out of their hands regardless of what you find them. So are there any communications with how technology could get the phones out of people's hands in automobiles?
Yeah, so I'm first going to address your first question. It is illegal for anyone to be operating their vehicle and be distracted, whether it be their phone or something else. But it's a secondary offense in the state of Ohio, meaning you cannot be pulled over just for that. Now, I do know that there are companies out there, the insurance companies have really put the pressure on companies where employees are driving vehicles on company time, that they put in cameras that are watching so that if that driver is ever in a crash, they have recorded data and they know. But as far as law enforcement is concerned, it's not a primary offense. So there are other avenues that are tackling that issue because there are more and more crashes happening, and it becomes a greater liability for the company and the insurance companies. The second one is, that's an okay idea, but I'm going to challenge people that any cell phone use, whether it be hands-free or holding it in your hand, is a major distraction. The AAA Foundation actually did a complete research study where they put probes on people's brains and they drove with them hooked up to a computer and did all this analysis. And what they found was that hands-free or in hand really made no difference when talking on the phone. The big challenge is the cognitive distraction. So when you're on your phone, your brain is trying to operate too many things at one time, whether you're hands-free or not. Your brain cannot handle the task of driving and thinking about that conversation and your mind focused there. And I have a great video that shows that I share with when I present in front of a lot of groups. Most all groups, we use that video on the distracted mind to educate people about how important it is to just drive.
So I have a question then. I'm going to ask you a question about that. How is that different than having passengers in the car that you're having a conversation with? And what studies have been done in the difference between having a conversation with, 3 people in your car or having a conversation with someone on the phone and you're doing hands-free? Have there been any comparisons done with that?
Yes, there has. Yeah, go ahead, Matt. Talk on that.
I'm just going to say that's what I was going to chime in before you asked that question, Dan, is that the studies have showed that the difference between having it's weird, but if you really think about it, it makes sense. When you're talking to someone in the car, they're there. But when you're talking to someone on the phone, your brain will I guess, be distracted to think about what they're doing and what they're looking like and everything else. So there's a difference in your cognitive ability of when they're in the car or when they're not in the car, of how your brain, I guess, is visualizing that conversation. Now, even having, and that's one of the reasons why with teen drivers, why there's a limit of passengers, even having multiple passengers in the car is still distracting. Now, as you become an adult and a little more mature, I think we handle it a little better. Certainly there's some mischief going on a lot of times with teenagers, but that's the main reason why when you're 16 in that first year that there's only one non-family member allowed in the car with a teen driver, and then it progressively gets a little bit relaxed until they're 18. But yeah, the studies, and Carol can probably expand, I just know that the studies did take in that account with the difference between someone in the car having a conversation with them versus talking to someone on the phone, even hands-free.
The additional component you have with someone in the car with you is they're able to see what you're seeing, or they're able to see what you're not seeing. So their eyes can also be on the road, and they can be aware of potential stopped car in front of you or a car coming out from across street, where the person on the other end of the phone has no idea what situation you're in that vehicle. So it is a distraction without question. And I have ridden with people who cannot have a conversation and drive at the same time. And so I don't talk to them in the car. Actually, I have one friend, I won't even ride with her I have to drive because she cannot drive and have a conversation at the same time. Depends on the people.
Yeah,
I've
and
got a question.
And to your, one last thing to your point, Dan. I know with an iPhone, and I don't know if Android has the capability or not too. It probably does, but with an iPhone, you know, what I put mine on do not. If you have Bluetooth in your car, you can put it on do not disturb, which I use, and I recommend, at least, because it is going to be tough for anyone to be totally disconnected. I understand that. We all understand that. We should be more, but it's the life we live. But at least the do not disturb does not allow any text notifications, anything to come through. The only thing that comes through is a phone call that you can be hands-free and talk. But it is a nice feature. It should be on anyone's iPhone, called do not disturb. And you can do it always when traveling, I think, or you can do it just when connected to Bluetooth. So.
All right, I've got a question on the distracted driving offenses. So it's not a primary reason in Ohio to pull someone over. How many states, what's the breakdown on like what states is it a first offense, or how many do, or at least around here?
So Ohio is one of only 4 states in the nation that does not have distraction as a primary offense. We are one of only 4. One of those other 4 is Florida. Yeah, we all know how bad the drivers are in Florida. That's
Carol, is that cell phone distraction or any distraction? Because an officer can pull you over for distracted if they feel you're distracted because you're weaving or you're going 20 miles under the speed limit or whatever. They can pull you over for if they feel you're distracted at any time. But I think the cell phone is not a primary in only 4 states. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a good question. But we do talk about all distractions, especially with our youth. All distractions. Other people in the car, billboards. The high school kids talk about a pretty girl on the side of the road. Yep, she's a distraction too.
Well, it's eating, it's putting on makeup, it's all that
Putting
stuff
on
as
makeup,
well.
shaving. Don't do it while you're driving.
We wouldn't let my neighbor. We had a carpool at high school of 3, and we wouldn't let her drive because she would continually try to put makeup on in the car. So my buddy and I were like, no, we'll drive.
Wow. Yeah. Not a good thing. I will tell you that I have heard from the nurses in ERs that many times they have women who come into the ER with a mascara wand stuck in their eyeball. No lie. It happens frequently.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those driving and putting on mascara, which is frightening. So
it's seriously dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a good habit at all. So before we go and wrap up, I want to share this very short little video with you all. Literally short, it's 40 seconds. So that's my message for today. Please just drive.
Thank you so much, Carol and Matt. That was great. This will be up on our YouTube channel, and then we'll share it to our Facebook page this afternoon. Next week for Coffee and Conversation, we're going to have Minnie Muller with Community Development Professionals and Denise Cheney with Narrative Creative. They're going to tag team next week, so you can register for that at hamilton-ohio.com. And we'll see you next Tuesday at 9 a.m. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Tiffany, Matt, and Carol, great information. So
Very,
thank you.
very
Everybody have a
Yes.
great day.
Fabulous.
Great and safe day.
Yep.
Safe out there.